All right, men, welcome to today's episode of Strong Men, Strong Marriages, how to overcome disconnection in marriage. So this happens commonly. And so I'm going to use a very personal example right now. My wife and I are feeling a little bit disconnected. And so I just want to go through kind of the steps we're going to take. And I'll kind of give a follow up as we, keep improving through this. But this happened before. You're going to hit times of disconnection in your marriage. And this is what I say with guys, in the program. And as I'm, inviting guys into the program that are good fits, this happens. You're going to have times where you do disconnect, where you do have conflict. And, Elizabeth and I, we've been able to manage these disconnections many times in the past. So there's no reason we won't be able to this time. I just want to walk you through those steps that we're going to take. But it's not fun when you're in this situation. It's not fun right now. So I don't want you to think that like nothing bad ever happens in my marriage just because I'm doing this. I fall into some of the same old patterns sometimes, and it's frustrating, disappointing, but you can get through it when you have the tools. So I'm going to share that with you guys today. So my name is Mike Fraser, MD. I am a psychiatrist and marriage coach, and I help high achieving Christian men have more intimate marriages. All right, so let's share our weekly wins. This is from guys that are in our program, Love, Intimacy, and Legacy. So yeah, we talked last week about, when our wife complains about things, like how do we manage that? And a big part of it is just managing our emotions, understanding that she's really sharing something important with us. So as we can manage our emotions and really listen to her, that lets her feel free. It kind of lets that wound heal as we listen to those things that she's sharing with us. So, one particular guy in the program, he's doing just a really great job of this and, really managing that. Well, a few of the guys, right, that they're really doing great with this. Um, Another thing that happens when you work on your relationship with your wife, like the skills you learn, they translate to other relationships with work, with your kids, right? So one of the gentlemen, he's just having a great connection with his kids. They're sharing things that are difficult, struggles that they're having. They're being vulnerable because this guy, he's a safer place to be now, which is really cool. Allowing space in positive ways. So, some people come in and they're facing a separation or close to it, or they do like an in-home separation where you're not in the same bed, but you're in the same like place. And so, just managing your emotions through that, being able to still connect in positive ways, to not throw a fit, to not get super depressed, right? It's okay to feel sad and all that, but you still want to interact it with your wife in ways that are kind and positive. She doesn't she needs space, and this is something I teach the guys. She needs space when she says that. She needs space from you being a mosquito, from being negative, from not listening to her, right? And so when you can adjust that, and when she's around you now, she feels heard, she feels listened to, then she doesn't need as much space because she feels safe with you. She's able to communicate with you. Okay. Overcoming disagreements. So guys, they're facing disagreements, and this is what we're going to talk about today. Like it happens, but being able to get through those and just come out the other side more connected. Guys are doing that in the program now when before they would not have been able to, right? Having days of just really great connection with family and friends and with your wife, right? Across all areas, mental, emotional, physical, all of that, right? Guys are experiencing that, seeing those smiles, feeling great. Okay. Managing overwhelm. So again, when you can manage your emotions well, when you have really just busy days that would usually stress you out a ton, when you have the skills of managing your emotions, that doesn't happen. You're able to work through it well. One of the guys says it was just a day he'd remember for a really long time because he was able to manage it in such a more effective way. Okay. So that's what happens. It translates everywhere into your work, into everything. Delivering your apology letter. One of the guys this week, he delivered his apology letter. It's hard. It's hard to do this, but so powerful, so meaningful. He's able to really do it in a great way. So I'm super proud of him. My son this week, he shared with me that he's interested in doing some coaching, which is huge for me because, I went into this because I feel like it's what I'm meant to do. It's what you know, I feel like this is the gift that I can give to the world. And so for him to kind of see that and think, hey, maybe that's for me too, is really cool. But also like just to show him that, yeah, you can do this for a living, right? And make a good living doing it is really cool. So, all right. So again, sharing where we're at, like the past few weeks, my wife and I, we felt more disconnected. Part of this is because we're just really busy with the kids right now. We've got 4 kids in sports. Um, and one of them is teenager. He's got stuff going on. So two of them are teenagers, but it's just busy. Like every night we're running kids different places. Elizabeth and I haven't had a lot of time to talk each day. Um, so I kind of went into an old pattern where last night I got really kind of overwhelmed. I think part of it was because I was feeling that disconnection, and so I tried to get attention by acting in like a negative way. I kind of blamed Elizabeth for things, and it turned into a really good and important discussion that we had, where we were both able to express some of the things that we were frustrated with, that the other person was doing, right. So for Elizabeth, she told me that her big concern is that she feels like I haven't really been listening very well to her when she talks. I think she's right. I think I have been maybe overly focused on work, and which is funny. I mean, my work, right, is helping guys have better marriages, and focusing on that more than my own marriage, right, and not really following through, because kind of they're kind of related, right. So she asked me to do some things, I'll be like, oh yeah, I'll do that, right, and then just forgetting, not following through. Sometimes she really is saying things that I just don't hear, and but a big part of that's because I'm just not paying that much attention, so in the program we talk about mental rehearsals. My mental rehearsal right now is when she talks, really like visualizing it or writing it down. It's like last night she mentioned a few things. I wrote them all down to just make sure that I prioritize them. And before I got into record this podcast, I made sure I did some of those things, right? So I'm actually following through. Um, so and I also feel like she hasn't been doing what I would like her to do. But she brought up, hey man, like I actually want to help you, but you're not very clear on what you want from me, which is 100% accurate. That's something I've struggled with our whole marriage, really, is just being clear on what I want. Sometimes I'll make the mistake a lot of guys make and just say, well, I want more sex, right? But she's like, look, man, I've got to feel connected first. And so that can lead to a like big issue. Well, she won't give me sex, she won't give me connection, but it doesn't have to, right? And like I know this now. I used to think, oh well, now you can't accomplish anything, but it's just not true, right? For me, like these are things I want to do anyway. I want to be someone that listens to my wife. I want to be somebody that does prioritize her and that does follow through on his commitments. And as I do that, the connection comes, because probably a couple months ago I was doing a lot better at that, and our connection was just a lot better, right? And I think I was probably doing better on asking for things I wanted. Elizabeth does a lot for me, and even last night, like I realized that like the whole day she had done a bunch of really nice stuff for me. She made dinner, she went and got some groceries when I didn't feel like it, so I could just like sit and watch a game with my son. um so she'd done a lot of things, but I like took offense to stuff anyway. It was, and I knew it, like I knew that was happening, but again, it was just kind of like an old pattern of a negative way of bringing up some concerns. Like I felt the disconnection, and so my old pattern has been like start a fight when I feel disconnection. That's kind of what I did last night. So the other thing she mentions is she's kind of feeling the mosquito cycle with sex, where maybe I have been more like that, of wanting that, kind of being manipulative around that. And I actually don't think that's totally accurate. There's probably a little bit of that. And she also recognized, yeah, part of that is my past. She went through some really bad trauma, and so she's like, yeah, some of that probably is me, which is fair, right? um, so that was the conversation that we had. um, but it's important, right? That's intimate communication. That's actually sharing with each other what's going on, right? I feel like I was able to listen better last night, even though we'll get to this, like I misinterpreted some things that I had to clarify this morning. But so again, like my frustration when I heard this is I felt really stupid, right? Because this is what I work on with guys: listening to what your wife says, following through on your commitments. We kind of check ourselves on that every day. And the funny thing is, like, we rank ourselves on that every day in the program. And I was actually like ranking myself pretty high most days. But Elizabeth wasn't feeling that. And that's why it's useful to get feedback, right? Get feedback from your wife. Hey, like, do you feel like I'm actually listening when you say, hey, like, what percent of the time do you feel like I'm actually following through on what I tell you I'm going to do? And be ready for that feedback, because you might think you're at like 90%, and then your wife might say, oh, like 10%. That's probably what my wife would say right now, probably like 5%. And when I look, right, and she gives me the example, she's actually right. Like I've said, yeah, I'll set these things up, and then I haven't. Um, and I've been doing the mistakes that I tell the guys that they make, right, of minimizing that, of saying, oh, I just forgot, right, versus saying, hey, like that's really kind of letting you down here. Um, so and again, that was another pattern that was like when I was feeling down, oh, like this is me, I feel so bad I don't do this. That's another mistake I tell the guys that they make, is making it about them, right? Saying like, okay, don't make it about you, right? Your wife feels bad. Don't make it about me feeling dumb that I don't do that. Make it about her. Like, wow, that probably feels really bad, especially when I'm like trying to help these other guys. And then, here I am not doing it with you. That probably makes you feel like not a priority, right? So how do we get through this, right? How are we going to get through this time of disconnection? Because I know we are, right? Like I said, we've gotten through it. We've got the tools, right? We'll get through it. So one of the things that we need to do, right, is clarify some things. So, last night Elizabeth said a couple things that I really interpreted in the wrong way. So, like, since I started doing marriage coaching full time, our schedule has shifted a little bit, to where I used to be able to pick kids up in the afternoon, and now, uh, at least for the moment, most days I'm not. I have calls in the afternoon. It's a good time typically for a lot of guys to connect, and so those afternoon spots tend to fill up, which is fine. But I kind of feel bad about that, right? Because I feel like, man, I used to be able to pick up the kids and help my wife in that way, and now I can't. So I feel kind of bad about that. Um, and I was kind of like taking that out on her, right? Taking that out on her, that, or like believing that she felt that same way, that I was like failing her by not being able to pick the kids up. When I clarified that with her, she's like, well, I was like, yeah, that's how I feel. I think you think I'm failing you by not being able to pick the kids up. And she was like, no, like not at all. I don't feel that one bit. Like I'm actually really proud of the stuff that you're doing. It felt really good to hear that, you know. Um, and that was one of the things I made of a request of hers, like, hey, if you could just remind me of that, right? Um, you know, it, and again, this is what we talk about, kind of balancing, right? You want to ask for what you want. You're only responsible for what you do, right? But you can still ask for what you want, right? Your wife probably wants to do things for you. You probably want to do things for your wife, and you also want to match like what you do with what they care about. You know, so anyway, so yeah, she clarified that. There's something else she said that I found really hurtful, and then I like said, "Hey, is this what you meant by that?" She's like, "No, like not at all." Right? So I just totally missed it again because of my own whatever, my own interpretation, my own filters, my own baggage, all of that. So um, a lot of times that happens. Something that our wife says, it quote unquote triggers us, which to me that just means it brings up old hurts or old feelings that maybe don't have anything to do with your marriage at all. Maybe they have to do with your upbringing or whatever, right? So that happened to me. And again, it like puts up these weird filters where you really hear things totally incorrectly. And so sometimes you have to come back later, right? And you clarify. You're like, hey, is this really what you meant there? A lot of times your wife will probably be like, no, that's really not what I meant. So, you come back, you clarify, right? Is that what you meant? Is that really what happened? Okay. So, right. And then, we got clear on what we wanted. Okay. So again, you share what the frustrations are, right? Um, you clarify, right? You make sure you understand each other well. And then, you ask for what you want. So for me, uh, what she's asking of me is really listening to understand her, right? When she talks, paying attention, which I have not been very good at. And then following through on my commitments. Okay. Also, she like put a list together a while ago. We did this on a date night. It was her idea, where we just wrote down what helped us feel valued and loved by the other person. We jotted that down. So I'm going to go back and review that and, do some of those things too. But my main focus is really listening, paying attention when she talks. So again, I thought I was doing well on that, but I wasn't. Right? It really wasn't. I was minimizing. I was distracted. Right? So it was a good check for me. So then, for me, the things I'm asking of her, a few things around the house that are important to me. You're reminding me that she's proud of me, right? And again, not that that's her job, but she asked, right? She's like, dude, you don't ask me to do much for you. So like, I want to do things for you. Just like, let me know what's going to make a difference. So it was good for me to be able to express that to her. You know? So again, we're both responsible for our own emotions, right? But it's okay to ask for what we want, and it's important, right? That shares, it's vulnerable, right? Because your wife might say no, but you also just own that as, your desire, which is fine. It's important to have desires and things that you want. Okay. And then that allows us to serve and help each other in ways that we actually, respect for each other, or that we appreciate from each other. The five love languages, it's a useful tool, right? It doesn't do it on its own, but it's a useful way to realize that, like, okay, maybe um, a note from me doesn't mean as much, and you'd rather have me clean the dishes, right? That means more to you. um, just important to understand that. Stephen Covey talks about this with like the emotional bank account. Like, what's a deposit for one person might be withdraw for another. So it's just getting clear, like, what is it, what is it uh, that your wife appreciates, what is it that you appreciate, and being clear on expressing that to each other. And it takes some reflection, right? And probably some experimentation. Okay, what do I appreciate? What does my wife appreciate? How do we share that with each other? Okay. Right. So as a summary, how do you overcome disconnection? How are Elizabeth and I going to overcome this disconnection we're feeling right now? So one is to share frustrations with each other. Just let each other know, like, what's going on, the concerns that you're feeling. Hey, I do feel disconnected. I do feel like you're not listening. Hey, I do feel like you're not, supporting me with the kids, whatever it is, right? So you share those frustrations. That's intimate communication, meaning sharing something important to you, even though your spouse might not like it. Okay, that's what I define as intimate communication. So then you want to get clear on what you actually want, right? You don't want to just complain. Part of that, it is kind of part of it, sharing the frustration, sort of complaining, right? But then you can't just end it there, right? You need to figure out what you actually want to have happen. Okay, so you get clear on what you want. Then sometimes that takes some thought and some experimentation, right? Then you ask for what you want. Okay, here's what I'd like you to do. That takes courage, right? It takes you believing you have value to ask for what you want. Okay. It takes courage knowing she might not do it or he might not do it. Right. So then you want to make sure you listen to what your wife wants. Right. And that takes consideration. So it takes courage to ask for what you want. It takes consideration to listen to what your wife wants. That's what Stephen Covey defines as the definition of maturity, is the balance of courage and consideration. I like that definition. So then you got to follow through on your commitments. So again, my wife's like, dude, just pay attention when I talk, right? Follow through on what you say. Pretty basic stuff. So for me, I've got to do that now. Like, that takes integrity. That's what I need to follow through on. Right? And then just have faith that you're going to get through it and the good stuff is going to happen. And so that does require faith. If you're a Christian person, you can, believe in God that that's going to happen. Like, it just is the right thing to do, to listen and pay attention to your wife. It's the right thing to do, to follow through on the stuff you say you're going to do. Right. So when I do that, I can have faith that good is going to come in one way or another. And because really Elizabeth and my relationship is overall really pretty good. Um, and a lot of times great, right? Right now, it's just we're in a dip, right? And it's okay, right? We know how to get through it, and this is how we're going to get through it. So having faith, and it can help you, to look back and say, okay, like, we have gotten through things in the past, and here's how we can do it. Now, if you've had a lot of struggles doing that, you may need to learn some of these skills, right? You may need to learn, how do you have intimate communication? How do you really make clear requests? How do you do a really good job of listening, manage your emotions well enough to listen to your wife? Okay. And that's what we learn in love, intimacy, and legacy. And that's why these guys are having really great results. They're learning these skills. Okay. And able to do it. And like I said, just creating great connections, great wins with their wife, with their kids, with work, right? It works everywhere when you learn these relationship skills. So visit strongmenstrongmarriages.com and apply to join Love, Intimacy, and Legacy. Love to have you in there. This is a journey we're taking together, and skills that we are all practicing and working on. Like, there's daily posts and accountability you do. I do them with you because look, this stuff happens, right? Disconnection happens, and I want to be not just acting like everything's great all the time, but sharing how we're getting through the difficulties that we do have. Okay, and I'll keep you updated as we work through this time of disconnection, because we'll get through it. Just going to take these skills that we're talking about. All right. And you can learn them with me and with the other guys in Love, Intimacy, and Legacy. Again, this is for high achieving Christian men who want more intimate marriages. All right. So, guys, head over to strongmenstrongmarriages.com, apply to join, and I will see you next episode. Stay strong. I'll see you next episode.